is covering the UK, and that cloud's being carried from the east and northeast by an area of high pressure sitting to the north. Now, the high pressure is generally keeping things settled at the moment, although we have seen some drizzly showers in places where the cloud has been low enough, especially for eastern and northeastern England. We keep that going through the night. It tends to become drier for many, however, and with clear skies in the south as well as for western Scotland, there will be a frost in places. So a chilly start to the day, frost-free for the North Sea coast, but here we've got that easterly or northeasterly wind, so feeling cold. There'll be fewer showers across northern England, southern Scotland, Wales compared with Wednesday. Actually, plenty of dry weather. Best of any sunshine will be limited to the southwest of England, southwest Wales, and increasingly central and western Scotland. Otherwise, a lot of cloud building through the day. And that cloud by Friday morning is sitting across England and Wales predominantly. So frost-free, but grey skies to begin things. Some fog around as well. Scotland and Northern Ireland, brighter skies, but a chilly start with the widespread frost. And then colder conditions arrive from the north on Saturday and into Sunday. Cold enough for frequent snow showers in the far north. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You're with GB News. Good evening. The top story tonight, wrongly accused post office workers will have their names cleared by the end of the year following the Horizon IT software scandal. Postal Services Minister Kevin Hollinrake said today that new legislation to exonerate sub-postmasters in England and Wales will be introduced within weeks. The government also announced an upfront payment of £75,000 in compensation for those who were jailed or bankrupted as a result of the flawed software which wrongly showed money was missing. Mr Hollinrake said victims will get the justice they deserve.
We intend to bring forward legislation as soon as we can to overturn the convictions of all those convicted in England or Wales on the basis of post office evidence given during the Horizon scandal. The government will, in the coming days, consider whether to include the small number of cases that have already been considered by the appeal courts and the convictions upheld.
Kevin Hollinrake. Well, in other news today, a joint UK-US military operation fought off a maritime attack on international shipping in the Red Sea. The Defence Secretary said today the Royal Navy's HMS Diamond destroyer successfully took out 21 multiple attack drones deployed by Houthi rebels attacking commercial shipping in support of Hamas. Grant Shapps described the attacks as completely unacceptable, warning there would be further consequences. The estimated cost of building the HS2 rail link between London and Birmingham has soared to £66.6 billion. The chairman of the project, Sir John Thompson, told MPs the increase was due to original budget estimates being too low, poor standards of work and inflation. In 2013, HS2 was estimated to cost £37.5 billion for the entire planned network that included the now scrapped sections from Birmingham to Manchester and Leeds. Patients have been bearing the brunt of junior doctors' strikes. That's according to health experts. It comes as the NHS data shows more than 113 operations and appointments were axed during the longest strike in NHS history. Junior doctors in England ended a 6-day walkout yesterday, and now they're looking to extend their mandate to strike. They're urging the Health Secretary to come forward with a credible offer to stop walkouts. The current mandate was voted for by members in the summer and expires at the end of next month. The government says it would negotiate with junior doctors if they entered talks with reasonable expectations. Now, the pressure of returning to the office after working from home is proving a little too much for some, with around 6 working days, we're told, lost last year per worker due to stress. A survey of 1,000 people found that noise, distractions about work and worries about being on show were the main causes of anxiety in the office. Respondents also said their anxiety had got worse in recent months after the trend to work from home during the pandemic came to an end. That's the news on GB News, across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and now on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. This is Britain's news channel.
Thank you, Polly. Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Leo Kirst, taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour with GB News answer to Posh and Bex. It's Cressida Wetton and Bruce Devlin. Well, she's got a surprisingly high alcohol content, just like Bex. And you're Posh for Dundee.
Thank you. I'm also having a very extreme reaction to retinol, but I'll go into that after the first couple of stories.
What is retinol?
Retinol's an anti-aging ingredient that's quite harsh on your skin. As the makeup artist said, it'll get worse before it gets better.
Oh, really?
Yes. Said it'll just give you a light dusting.
Right, that's like the unveiling scene in Batman.
Posh for Dundee. Posh Dundee?
You know how to use a knife and fork. That's pretty posh for Dundee.
Well, I suppose I'm from the West End of Dundee.
Yeah.
So I think that is...
Knife and fork?
What? Fingers on occasion. You've been at a chip shop with me.
OK, that's enough chit-chat. Let's have a look at the front pages of tomorrow's papers. The Daily Mail leads with £75,000 deal sparks new battle with post office victims. The Guardian has hundreds of post office victims to get convictions overturned, and US warns of reprisals for Red Sea shipping attacks. The Telegraph has post office handed out bonuses for convictions. The Eye has pressure grows to punish post office scandal firm as victims will be cleared. And the Express leads with justice. Post office victims will be cleared. Can you see a theme emerging tonight? And finally, the Daily Star has Arise, Mr. Bates. And those were your front pages. And Cressida, let's have a look at those front pages, starting with The Guardian.
Starting with The Guardian, hundreds of post office victims to get convictions overturned. So Sunak's, he's finally found it's the Daily Mail. Well, we've got both, haven't we?
Yeah.
So Daily Mail are going with £75,000 deal sparks new battle with post office victims. So anyway, it moves on, and Sunak seems to be... He's kind of making the most of this because he's acting quickly and trying to impress everybody that he's taking swift action. I mean, I say swift action. Obviously, we've had 20 years build-up to this.
Yeah.
But now that it's on his desk...
But now that people have found out about it, he's taking swift action.
Now that somebody's made a drama about it, you know, a drama, not just a fuss, now people care. It's like the old thing, more people vote for Strictly than politics, isn't it? Now we've made it entertainment, it matters.
Right, yeah, because, I mean, talking about drama, I'm surprised, Bruce, that there wasn't more of a fuss before. I know there have been various documentaries. It's sort of been simmering along. There have been journalists doing some investigative articles, but this hasn't really burst into the public consciousness.
No, not until ITV did this drama. That seems to be the trigger, which is really kind of sad. And also, as well, I'd heard somewhere that apparently they're looking into Keir Starmer's involvement because he was to do with the Crown Prosecution Service or something at that time. So there's a whole host of people that have obviously known, and for whatever reason, whether to protect the company or the government or all that kind of stuff. But I mean, it's horrific, and like I know that the £75,000 is an upfront payment to begin with, but that isn't going to bring back the people that killed themselves.
Well, no, exactly. Are you saying that they're suggesting Starmer put some of these people behind bars?
No, I'm not saying that. Because I
Tories
don't
would
know.
love that, wouldn't they? They'd be absolutely delighted.
But apparently he was in a position that had something to do with this at the time.
Right,
yeah, I mean, he was head of the Crown Prosecution Service, so, I mean, although he might not have been, involved directly himself in the cases, I mean, the buck stops with the person at the head. But I mean, one of the most alarming things here is that people were incentivised to convict. They were given cash bonuses if they prosecuted staff, and those prosecutions were successful, which shows that there's a sort of incentive to put people behind bars there, even if they hadn't actually done anything wrong. And in fact, the prosecutions continued after the faults with the Horizon accounting software had become clear.
It's just hideous. I mean, if the public thought that some people at the post office were taking people's pensions and swindling people out of money, you can see why people jumped on board. But at the same time, you think, how can 750 people have been accused of the same crime? It just doesn't...
Yeah,
it seems impossible.
A common sense check would suggest, maybe we haven't suddenly got an epidemic of criminal postmasters. It's ridiculous. Some people have claimed that the scandal is racist. They say that they felt that they were treated, that the errors in the software were somehow racist. They're ethnic minority postmasters. I mean, do you think there's any likelihood that this software was singling out people who weren't white? I don't know how it could
software.
I don't know how it could scan. We didn't have the technology to scan.
Didn't have the AI
like
in those days. So I'd be very surprised if it was racist software, but, who knows?
Yeah, but I guess you can call anything racist these days, and somebody will believe it. Moving on, Bruce, what's on the front cover of The Guardian?
This is the UK considers strikes on, and I'm saying it right, Houthi rebels.
Well, people used to say Houthi, didn't they? There seems to be a fashion for saying Houthi now, but we know what you're talking about.
Houthi, right, OK. And this is to do with the largest attack repelled in the Red Sea. The UK is considering strikes on Houthi rebels in Yemen after they launched their largest attack targeting Britain and American warships. On Tuesday night, the destroyer HMS Diamond and US warships downed 21 drones and missiles launched by Iran-backed rebels.
I mean, this is worrying, isn't it? Because it looks like, for a while, Israel and Gaza looked like it was going to be just contained to the region. Now it looks like it could spread. There have been strikes in Lebanon, strikes in Iran by Israel. And the Houthis, I'm still going to use the soft.
Houthis?
I'm staying 2012
Aren't you worried,
style.
though, that people will kind of think that you're putting on a lisp?
I've got, some sort of speech impediment.
Yeah, like Jonathan.
Well, I think they'll be pleased that GB News have got a diversity hire. Not only is he Scottish, but he's got a lisp, or a lisp, I should say. But yeah, so Iran is also behind the Houthis.
Yeah, 100%. And we've got Grant Shapps saying this really cannot continue. And it's not the same as Benjamin Netanyahu saying this is war, is it? It's like it's quite a. We're definitely going to take this very seriously in due course. And I don't know if I do find that all that reassuring.
Do you think he'll have the Houthis, Grant Shapps will have the Houthis quaking in their boots? Or their booths?
Well, not with phrases like "watch this space," he added. I mean, it's like a kind of farce, isn't it?
I shouldn't laugh. This is so serious.
No, it's very serious.
This is so serious. It's going to drive up the price of everything, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because so much of our world commerce comes through the Red Sea, comes through the Suez Canal. Obviously, it's a flashpoint for political instability in the past.
It's going to be just like the post office. Nobody cares until it hits entertainment. When you can't get hold of stuff you want, then people are going to care.
So you're suggesting in 12 years' time, Iran are going to do... not Iran, ITV. I always get those two mixed up. ITV are going to do an amazing drama about the Red Sea conflict.
And we'll ask the government of the day why they didn't notice.
Finally, Cressida, take us through the cover of The Telegraph, please.
OK, so they're covering the post office as well. Post office handed out bonuses for convictions, is what you just said. They've also got this little story here. Women are solution to armed forces recruitment crisis, says Grant Shapps, of course. More of his... Yeah, exactly. Me and Grant Shapps were best mates. When asked by The Telegraph on Wednesday what he would personally do to resolve the military's worsening recruitment crisis, Mr Shapps said, something which I'm extremely passionate about is actually having a military which should represent our country as it is today. I'll tell you what, I am not passionate about that. I think that is the worst idea ever. I don't want the military made up of kind of typical Brits. That's a terrible idea. What's he playing at? I mean, you know what I'm going to say? Predictably, I'm going to say I don't know why we have to try and push traditionally masculine jobs on women. I think it stinks. And then they start talking about toxic culture in the army. And again, I mean, I'm not saying it's right. And if any crimes have occurred, of course, they should be condemned. But what kind of culture are you expecting if you go into the forces? I mean, it's... Yeah. Maybe it's not for you, but that's politically incorrect.
Cressida, this sounds like you just trying to wriggle out of doing
national service.
Yeah, national service and go to fight the Houthis.
All right, here's my even worse and politically incorrect opinion. I do think women are the answer in that most men do things for women's approval. And if we've made it toxic to be a successful, strong... whatever, good military man. Well, what's the reward then? If you're just going to have people in the Guardian going, like, you've got to... Well, there's no reward.
You literally sound like me.
Do they get given a woman?
Yeah, this is the Taliban, the ISIS solution to finding fighters.
No, I don't go that far. They've got to earn it.
I mean, the military is having a recruitment problem across the West at the moment, Bruce, and some of it might be because we've sort of pushed away the military have sort of alienated some of the more masculine men who previously might have wanted to sign up, such as you. Well,
the funny thing was, I'd left school. Well, I kind of had to. Anyway, I left school at a very early age, and I went to join the Navy, and they laughed me out the place because I went in with platform trainers, and the man just went, "Get out." So I don't think they want me in the military. I don't think I'd be particularly good.
Well, see, if you're in the dugout, the platform trainers are going to put your head above the parapet.
That's the thing. It's just constant and like attention all the time.
You'd be good at the banter, though. You wouldn't be going, it's toxic, I'm out. You'd love
I could give a side eye to a sniper and save the moment, yes.
And we'll have more of that toxic banter in part 2. Coming up, we've got Brewdog in the doghouse, and HS2 spending has gone off the rails. See you in a couple of minutes.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Leo Curse, and my panel tonight of Wetton and Devlin, which sounds like a Victorian table wax brand. Kicking off this section with the Mirror and a news that will shock nobody, HS2 is costing more than estimated, Cressida.
HS2 bill shoots up by billions as Birmingham leg costs 4 times more than the Tories said. So, yeah, you've said it, and that's exactly it in the intro. We're not surprised, are we? It started off at 17 billion, obviously a bargain. Why don't we have 2? And we're now up to 66 billion. I could hear my dad as I'm reading it saying it's very easy to run out of other people's money. It's classic, isn't it? It's like government spending gone wild.
Yeah.
And this is all to shave like 20 minutes off a train journey that exists.
Well, that's what it was supposed to do.
And it goes to Birmingham. I mean, it's not a train journey to somewhere great. It's, literally a train journey to Birmingham. No offence to people from Birmingham watching.
But what is it with this country and infrastructure? Because we had that in Edinburgh with the trams. The trams went on for years and years and years, and then it was overspent, it was under-delivered, and it only went so far, and then they've done an extension, but it's still not gone all the way that it was meant to.
Yeah.
And it just seems to be a theme, whichever side of the border you're on, the abacus is right.
It absolutely is. I worked in management consulting, so I can tell you there's a culture in public sector procurement of people lowballing their bids when they're trying to win the tender. They bid way too low because then they think they'll win the tender, but also they know that once you're in, you'll just get bailed out. It's not like the government can back out, build half of a train line, or actually it can in this case. They've stopped building the stretch that goes to Manchester.
They haven't stopped spending, though, have they? They've managed to keep doing that.
How are they recouping the money? They're taking it from the pensioners.
I've no idea.
We're paying, aren't we? And this guy, what's he called? Sir John Thompson, who's in charge of it, to explain what's gone wrong, he says, if you say to a builder, you can give me a quote for an extension, they walk around and say it's about 50 grand, but then you get into the detailed design, you find out exactly how big it is and blah, blah, the costs go up. And it's like, yeah, and if it's your extension, you probably don't do the work.
But that's the same with getting a kitchen. I had a kitchen no, seriously, and it's a hoax. They tell you that you can get these units, but no, they're the flat pack units. They're not made up, and then you don't have the people coming out. So everything is a hoax, whether it's training.
Did you have the HS2 engineers building your kitchen?
I did, yes. And it's really nice. It's the same colour as my car. It's grey and black.
Right, but it stops halfway. It doesn't go all the way to Manchester. But, I mean,
No, but I do.
Public sector procurement needs to change, because the way the public sector spends money, it's somebody else's money, and they're spending it on something that they don't really care about. So obviously they're not going to get the best deal. I think, if you're building an extension on your house, you're going to shop around and get the best deal. Moving on, we've got the I Now and virtue signalling beer company Brewdog are slashing wages because they want to transfer wealth from workers to capitalist owners, Bruce.
Yes, so this is Brewdog, who are a Scottish company, I believe. Did they begin in Aberdeen or somewhere like that? Somewhere
like
bizarre. And they will no longer pay all workers the real living wage in a bid to cut costs. The beer maker will pay new staff lower UK national living wage and freeze wages for London bar workers. Now, this is the company that's run by James Watt, there was a big BBC Scotland documentary with allegations to misogyny in the workplace, I think harassment in the workplace, and a whole host of such. So he's quite a divisive figure anyway, but purporting to be a good socialist and caring for the people and all this kind of stuff, and it looks as though he's been hoisted by the petard of his own. Is it virtue signalling?
Yeah, I think it is, because, they try and be, they're all like, we've got the punk IPA, and it's like, so then all the centrist dads who think they're still cool drink it. And it's like, a corporation has put punk on a can and you think it's punk. That's like the opposite of punk. Also, they've received £1 million of taxpayers' money from the Scottish Government. And unrelated to that, I'm sure, they've also helped the SNP out with public events and donations and things.
I'm
sure those things are completely unrelated.
I'm stunned. I was going to say all their staff should go and work for the HS2 line because they won't take a pay cut.
Won't have to do any work.
Well, pretty much.
The one thing
You're telling me they are. Go on.
All I was waiting to say was the one thing that Brewdog do well is a cheese board. Just in case anyone's interested. No, really, it's very
good. Anybody wants a pint of cheese board. Cheese board sounds like one of their overpriced lagers. The cheese board IPA. Oh, it's 98% hops. It's disgusting. Moving on, we've got the Telegraph now with thousands of protesters blocking roads in Germany. But I like these ones, Cressida. They're not like Just Stop Oil.
They're not. Germany brought to its knees by train strikes and farmers' roadblocks. So it's a bit like the Canadian truckers, isn't it? They're taking things into their own hands. So these German farmers are angry because there have in the past been diesel subsidies that are about to dry up, and they're saying, no, we're not having it. We create the food, you're going to listen to us. And to be fair, that sort of seems to be not working, but I mean, they're having a massive impact. And at the same time, there's all these other strikes going on, so nobody can get to work. You can't go on the train, you can't go on the roads. It's chaos.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean,
where is Merkel in all this? Is she still with us?
Well, Merkel precipitated some of the issues that the farmers are now having to fight back against. So, and by the way, the farmers' strikes, it's not like Just Stop Oil, where people generally don't support Just Stop Oil. More than 2/3 of Germans support the striking farmers, and we're seeing this across Europe. The governments are attacking farmers. In this case, they're ending subsidies on diesel, which is going to push up costs for the farmers, which is going to push up costs for the consumer. And they're trying to make farming less tenable and reduce the number of farmers and reduce the amount of activity they do to reduce climate change gases, because obviously, beef or whatever it is releases methane, and other farming types, release other...
Yeah, because apparently the cows trumping is the biggest threat to the planet, and I'm not saying that anything other than fact. Apparently it's worse than air travel. All these guffing cows.
Especially if you get a cow on a 747. Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
Greta is going to cry into her vegan cornflakes. But
well,
I mean, as much as we might need to try and reduce methane emissions to try and change the weather in 30 years' time, which is important, I'm told. There's also the fact that we need food to eat, and this seems to be something that the globalist politicians who hate us seem to have forgotten.
Yeah, that's it. And every time Lewis comes on here and starts going on about Team World, and everyone says these are conspiracy theories, you're like, well, they make it so easy for you to believe these things.
You just need to open the newspaper. You've
literally stopped the farm. Well, the farmers have stopped themselves. But, and of course, the article is saying that the presence of far-right and neo-Nazi groups at certain farmers' protests have also stoked fears that demonstrations could be hijacked by anti-government extremists. So the usual thing, they're far-right. are they, or are they blokes just?
This is exactly what they did with the Canadian truckers. They said, "Oh, look, we found a nasty symbol, so that means the whole lot." It's like, well, why aren't you doing that with the Palestinian protest? I mean, I've seen a few nasty symbols there. How come you're not shutting the entire bunch of them down and calling them all far-right radicals?
I'm not saying it's great, but at least no one's lobbing soup at paintings and stuff like that. It seems to be a bit more adult and dignified.
It is. They're lobbing manure at politicians, which I think we can all get behind. Anyway, staying with delightful politicians now, The Guardian, with Trump warning of anarchy in the USA if he's banned from running in the election. People call him a liar, but I think he's telling the truth here, Cressida.
He may be. Trump warns of bedlam if criminal cases bar him from the White House. So this is classic Trump, isn't it? This is his latest, there will be bedlam in the I can't do the voice, I'm not Nick. There will be bedlam in the US if criminal cases deny Donald Trump a White House return, said the former president who incited saying he did it here, who incited the deadly January the 6th attack on Congress, but who is the clear frontrunner for the Republican nomination this year. So it would be a good time to write about him in The Guardian and say that he's trying to cause bedlam.
Yeah, I mean, The Guardian do openly state that he incited the January 6th attack on Congress, which is, commonly referred to, particularly in the left-wing media, as an insurrection, as, some attempted coup against the government, as if the most, militarily powerful country on earth could be brought down by, a stag do that got out of hand, a guy with some buffalo horns in his hat.
That was that's the image that I was thinking of, the man with the horns, like a human antler.
Yes, he's got excellent PR. We all think of him often.
Yes.
Couldn't tell you his name.
Looks after himself.
But Trump thinks that he's immune anyway. He thinks that they need to impeach him before they can get him in any real trouble. So if they go through all that, then there's going to be bedlam. I think he thinks the guy with the horny hat's going to be back.
He might be, but to quote Jean Brodie, Donald Trump thinks he's above the common moral code. So I think he feels he's immune to reality. But he's very popular.
But yeah, he is very popular, and this is a key thing because the Democrats and people on the left are saying, we need to stop Trump, we need to stop him from running to save democracy. And it sounds like denying people the opportunity to vote for who they want to vote for. That's the thing.
Denial.
That's not democratic. I think if you let people vote for Trump, let people have the choice. Let people, decide for themselves if they don't want 4 more years of Trump. Personally, I think they do.
I think that's highly likely. And I love that you have to explain what democracy is. That's just brilliant.
Well, we're going to see more of that later on in the show with the denial of democracy in Germany. But that's part 2 in the can. Stay with us for part 3, where we'll have far too sexy Calvin Klein underwear models and the mother of all Eton messes. Stay tuned.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got the Mail now, and Sweden is preparing for war. Are they manufacturing lots of self-assembly tanks, Bruce?
No, they're not actually, because there's a sale on. Sweden is warned to brace for war. The Civil Defence Minister tells citizens to get moving, quote unquote, and prepare for the end of 210 years of peace as the country bids to join NATO in face of Russia tensions.
So we've seen Ukraine invaded, and I mean Sweden and Finland, didn't join NATO, but now we're seeing them rush to sort of join NATO as protection against a sort of newly aggressive Russia. And Cresta, I think there was this assumption that Russia's spent its military force trying to invade Ukraine, but in fact Russia's been learning how to fight new wars with drones and all the rest of it, and now NATO is weakened. Trump could get back into the White House, decide America wants to pull out of NATO, and Russia's got a war economy, so they could just march into Finland and Sweden again.
It's relaxing, isn't it? I mean, the tone of this, it makes me think of Dad's Army. Like, are you ready? It's almost funny. It's not funny, it's awful, but it's like he's trying to appeal to the common man to say, why don't you go down and join your local cadets branch? Have you thought about getting a penknife? Although I suppose what's behind that is he's preparing the nation. He's saying, hey, don't forget, people have wars.
Yeah.
Pretty applicable to this country as well, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of the West, probably.
And Sweden is quite a radically different nation to how it was in the last World War. They've had, massive waves of immigration that they mention in this article. Well,
yeah, exactly. And I mean, the stuff I know about in relation to that is this endless debate about whether or not you should be able to deface a Quran. And it's not... The fact that it's such a long debate tells me that there is an issue there, because you'd think if you had sort of standard Western free press type values, that would be a pretty quick thing to answer, but it hasn't been.
Yeah.
So that's not very reassuring either.
And I guess some people are warning that these alien cultures might not have the same patriotism that is actually required to stand up and go and fight for a country. Well,
exactly, and it's not like Putin's not good at paying people to get on his side, like clearing out the prisons and going, come on, lads, come with me, I'll give you a few quid,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll start that tactic in the West. Moving on, we've got the Mirror now, and a multi-millionaire heiress is taking virtue signalling to the next level, Bruce.
Yes. Is it Marlena Engelhorn, if I pronounced that correctly? She's 31. She's just come into a $21.5 million inheritance from her grandmother, who died in September 2022. And what she has done is she set up a board to try and split this amount. So basically, she's like a foundation, she's like a charity. She's taking applications, or she's taking advice as to how to redistribute the wealth, because she thinks that's the right thing to do, and she feels that this money has given her great power in which to pay it forward.
And she's talking in here about inheritance tax and how it's terrible that Austria has abolished inheritance tax. So she's getting all that money. So she's noisily trying to find a way to give it away.
Either it's just virtue signalling, or because she's grown up so privileged. She's got this kind of... It's sort of like a GCSE RE project, you know. What would you do if you had £1 million, billion, squillion pounds? I'd give it to all the people. I mean, it's not even the best use of the money, is it?
No.
Giving it to the public. Yeah. Surely, if you really wanted to do something...
You'd give it to HS2 to help them out.
It could fund about 12 minutes.
Well, exactly, going to Preston. But those wanting to take part, and I don't know if you have to be in Austria to take part, but you can go online. You know, maybe I'll get in touch and say I've got a credit card to pay off. Any chance of a hand, love?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. They could be taking
But
suggestions like that.
No, she should be setting up businesses. She should be creating employment. That's my opinion, not giving it away.
Like that business would be 98% diversity and inclusion department. That is just a terrible idea. She sounds way too annoying. We've got The Guardian now, and Germany's right-wing AfD party is under fire for links to neo-Nazis. Come on, what have the Nazis ever done in Germany?
Politicians from Germany's AfD met extremist group to discuss deportation master plan. Which you probably love this, don't you? This is right up your street. Politicians from Germany's far-right Alternative for Deutschland AfD party met the head of a right-wing extremist identitarian movement and neo-Nazi activists to discuss a master plan for mass deportation. So the article, it's The Guardian, they're saying that what the AfD really want is to en masse deport people who weren't born in Germany.
Right. And Germany, of course, had huge waves of migration under Merkel. You know, millions of people from the Muslim world, and they've had issues with that. They've had issues with some of those people actually promoting Nazi ideology because they hate Jews so much. Right. And they've had all kinds of the problems with you know, welfare dependency and gang crime, and obviously you know, some terror issues with terror as well. So I mean, I can understand that there's some antipathy towards some of those waves of migrants, but this seems to go further than other countries. I mean, France recently passed laws saying that they were going to deport criminals who are foreign nationals, which seems like a fair enough thing, Bruce.
Yeah, no, I think it is sensible to deport criminals because if they're not from this country, then send them back to wherever they are from, and they can deal with them.
It's quite an outrageous position in this day and age, though, isn't it?
What, to send someone back?
Yes, because you
Maybe
don't know
I shouldn't be saying that.
No, I agree.
You'll find out on Twitter later.
Oh, my goodness, honestly, the abuse I got the other evening is that his resting Bruce face. The Botox, leave me alone.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
The Botox or the buttocks?
The Botox, well, I like both.
And again, we've got this issue with, you know, they're having a fraught debate, The Guardian calls it, over whether the AfD should be banned due to growing concerns that it poses a fundamental threat to German democracy.
So it's back to democracy again.
That's banning political parties. That's an anti-democrat. That's a threat to democracy.
Exactly.
It's insane that this is being discussed as, you know, instead of just saying like, oh, listen, we don't like these people, so we're going to be fascist and try and silence their voice. And the AfD are incredibly popular now. They're polling in first place in all 5 of Germany's eastern states. Right. And they're also, like Geert Wilders, they're picking up a lot of support from liberals in the cities who are also disillusioned with this, you know, globalist idea of, you know, massive uncontrolled immigration.
And so, as always, you push something underground, or try to push it underground, and it just pops up somewhere else, possibly in an uglier place than it would have done had you had a sensible discussion about the problem in the first place.
Is it going to pop up in Dundee?
Well,
I doubt it.
Not impossible, Leo.
I doubt it.
OK, well, moving on, we've got a story about eating. I hope you've eaten, because you won't be hungry after this story from the Metro about sewage at Britain's most prestigious school, Bruce.
Talk about an eaten mess. Do you remember, it was funny they mentioned thank you. I thought that was quite good and it got no response at all. But then we'll move on. Do you remember when Victoria Beckham wouldn't have a child? She was having them by C-section and they said she's too posh to push. Yeah. It's now these people are too posh to plop. They're unable to use toilets because the antiquated sewerage system. So when they went back on Tuesday, I don't know if a toilet was blocked or whatever, it was just coming back up.
There's been some weather.
There has been some weather, but it is an antiquated. But it's the same, I think, think with the sewage system underneath the Thames, that's trying to repair that because that keeps leaking and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I hope no one's having their toast toppers just now, because that will give you the bulk. But yes, they've all been sent home and the remote learning, where they're probably all doing it in en-suites.
Well, this is it. On the one hand, it's like they've paid all this money and they can't
£50,000 a year, and they can't go
the
for
toilet doesn't work.
Yeah.
Who's behind this? The same team behind HS2?
But you don't go to Eton for the toilets, do you?
I go to Eton for the toilets.
The prestige, and they'll all get tutors. They'll be fine. These aren't going to be like the average working class kid that fell behind in COVID. They'll be fine. They'll have a couple of weeks off. They'll probably get some extra French tuition.
Yeah, but the thing is, Chris, I mean, you say that you know, I think it's a fundamental human right whether you're paying for your education or not to be able to go to the lavatory.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's what they're going at home, aren't they?
Probably in nicer toilets.
Yes.
Gold-plated toilets.
Yeah, but those horrible old Victorian cold toilets, they build character. That's why this country was great at one point. Anyway, moving on, we've got The Guardian now with some good news for people who profit from war crimes, Cressida.
Madrid Museum has right to keep Nazi-looted Pissarro, it says US court. So this painting was stolen, well, not stolen, it was taken by force from a family, a Jewish family.
That's sort of what stealing
is. That theft?
Yeah, but I mean, it wasn't like they came home from a day's shopping and went, oh, where's that painting gone? Like, they knew what was happening.
Oh, right.
They were more or less forced to hand it over, and the Nazis gave them some money but put it in a blocked account because it was wartime that they couldn't access.
That's like some Trudeau would do.
Well, it is rather, isn't it? Good point. So anyway, this US court has ruled that the painting doesn't have to be returned to the family, which sounds awful, but apparently in Spanish law, 6 years means ownership. They've got squatters' rights on this painting, so it's going to stay in the museum. But the people that have made this...
It's stolen?
Yeah. Well, because squatters' rights, 6 years.
Yeah, but that's squatting in a property. This is different. You're not squatting,
Well,
not living in
I'm
this
not
painting.
actually a Spanish lawyer, but I think that's how they've come to this conclusion.
Conclusion,
God.
yeah. So people just turned up and said, give me that painting.
Well, it was yes, Nazis stole a lot of art during the Second World War.
Yeah,
That's
there have been films about it.
sort of a...
You know me, Real Housewives. I like to keep it light.
So it's a very loaded... And given all the anti-Semitism and all the rest of it, this is a very loaded sort of decision, really. Yeah. I'm surprised that they went along with it. But the judge has said, we hope that, even though we've ruled they don't have to do it, we hope they'll give it back anyway.
OK. The Times now, in a Calvin Klein ad, has been banned for sexually objectifying FKA Twigs. FKA Twigs is a woman, by the way, not a Romanian football team.
Yes, FKA, because I'm dyslexic, I thought it was AKA, but FKA means formerly known as Twigs. So she's a singer and I think a rapper. She was with Robert Pattinson from the Twilight films. But I don't understand why...
Shia LaBeouf.
So she's suing him for distress at the moment, but this is to do with a campaign that she did for Calvin Klein, which was a bit saucy and a bit suggestive, but that's what Calvin Klein's brand is. If you go back to the 70s...
We've got a picture here.
Yeah.
So I'll describe it for anybody listening on radio. It's a woman with not much... I mean, she hasn't put that shirt on very well.
No.
She's managed to cover...
But there's no nip slip. And you don't see her lower portions.
No.
There's an outline of a very nice buttock and all that kind of stuff. But campaigns such as Nothing Comes Between Me and My Calvins, you had Mark Wahlberg in pants, Kate Moss going around with no top on. Why are they... Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, I thought adverts were supposed to be sexy. And to be honest, it's refreshing to see sexy people in an advert after... It feels like we've had about 2 decades of just ugly munters.
Well, they said it's because... It's because there's not enough clothing in it. And they said, we considered the image's composition placed viewers' focus on the model's body rather than on the clothing being advertised.
But it was a denim shirt.
Well, that's what you saw.
Woman wears blouse, big deal.
Well, no, but she doesn't wear it, does she? That's the point. They're saying that you're looking...
She looks good.
Well, they're not arguing about that.
No,
they haven't said
but the
she's a
funny
munter.
thing was that Kendall Jenner did a similar ad in the States and they haven't ruled that that's in any way inappropriate and that campaign is continuing to run.
Oh, really?
So, don't understand.
Maybe it's just separate rules for separate people.
Well, it also says that it's her facial expression gave the image of an overall sexual overture. Surely they're not saying that the way a woman looks and expresses herself could lead people to think that she's being
If you look at that, do you think that she's trying to come onto the camera or anything like that? I think that's maybe just her resting face.
However you appear, it doesn't mean anything, and everyone should proceed with caution.
Well,
OK. So that's part 3 done, but join us after the break for NASA's conspiracies and the real reason why you can't understand my Scottish accent. Who wrote that? We've got no idea. See you in a couple of minutes. Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. We've got The Guardian now, and if you had Jews digging secret tunnels under New York on your 2024 bingo card, you can tick it off. What's the latest on this story, Cressida?
Several men arrested after dispute over secret tunnel in Brooklyn synagogue. This is quite a weird story. So I've seen the footage. A group of men belonging to the Hasidic Jewish community in New York were arrested on Monday amid a dispute over an illegal tunnel secretly dug into the side of a historic synagogue, which has since been closed. Now, I don't really understand why it was illegal. At first, I thought, is it a fire risk or something? It sounds like the sort of thing...
You're generally not allowed to go digging big tunnels or under buildings because it can cause them to collapse.
The foundations, of course. Yeah, that would be the problem.
Otherwise, we'd all do it.
Well, yeah, I guess we would. So how bizarre. They've got this massive secret tunnel. But, you know, when we've got... I don't know if this is supposed to be a Jewish problem. You know, we've got loads of Jews at this channel, haven't we? And we don't...
Yeah, but, I mean, some of the stuff that they've pulled out of the tunnels is quite disturbing.
What have they pulled out?
They've pulled out stained mattresses. There's a baby high chair, and there have been, you know, a series of articles about ultra-Orthodox Jewish rabbis and a problem with child abuse, much like the Catholic Church used to have, or possibly still does.
Right.
Right. So these are particularly dark secret tunnels.
Yeah. Well, they do have lights in them. But yeah, some of the stuff that went on was quite worrying. But it was just bizarre to see Jews, climbing out of tunnels in the ground. And we've got lots of Jews on headliners: Louis Schaefer, Josh Howie, Jonathan Cogan. To be honest, I've never actually seen them use the front door to come in. Oh my God, Jonathan, where did you come from?
Because
where did all this dirt come from? Why are you not wearing shoes? Well, for anybody listening on radio, we have just had a Jew climb out of a tunnel here in the studio. So it seems to be something that's spreading. Let's move on. We've got the Mail now with moon landing conspiracy theorists over the moon because NASA can't get over the moon. It'll make sense in a moment.
Yes, now it's a shame Nick Dixon isn't here because he mentioned this the other evening. Is it one big lie? As NASA delays its moon landing to 2026, conspiracy theories are reignited online with one skeptic claiming the space agency can't figure out how they did it the first time. So, do you think it's a hoax? But they were saying because there's things like the flag and the flagpole, and they brought back some of the moon rock, and they've had that analysed, that it can't be a hoax. But then other people are saying that this is all just a hoax.
How would we possibly know? Like, me personally, you could tell me any of those details, and I wouldn't be able to tell you if that was good science or not. Are you an expert on this?
I am, and I can tell you two things about the moon. It's hollow and it's flat.
It's hollow and it's flat.
It's hollow and it's flat.
Oh, are you suggesting it's just in a studio somewhere in Hollywood?
No, the moon is basically you can prove that the moon exists by you can prove that people went there because you can shine a laser at the moon's surface and it'll beam back from the reflectors that were left on the moon's surface. But this is quite interesting because it's bringing old conspiracy theories back. And conspiracy theories, I remember 30 years ago, conspiracy theories were what the crazy people believed in. And now conspiracy theories seem to just be predicting what the news is going to be in 6 months' time.
A spoiler alert.
Yeah.
That's what conspiracy theories are now. I had a friend who thought that it was to do with COVID and stuff like that, and she said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm a spoiler alertist.
Amazing. We've got The Guardian now with news that the largest ever primate died out from climate change. I thought Rick Waller was still alive. Cressida.
Giganto, how do I say it? Giganto, largest ever primate, died out due to diet change, says scientists. So he's a picky eater, basically. So this thing, it was a huge ape, I guess. It was 3 metres tall, weighed 200 to 300 kilograms, roughly 3 to 4 times the weight of a human. I'm not sorry it's gone, I'll be honest. I think we're in a better place without it. The results of this new study, the results suggest that about 700,000 to 600,000 years ago, Giganto's environment began to shift from dense forest with patches of grassland to more open forest. So basically the landscape changed.
But they're talking about climate change in this article. I mean, the subheader said, the diet change due to climate change. And I didn't know that people were using diesel cars.
Well, I was waiting to say, because there are an army of people that believe whatever is going on with our weather is a cyclical thing, like, like the Ice Age and all that kind of stuff. So if we had it all this time, there were no Range Rovers.
Yeah.
There were no cows. As far as I'm aware, so you don't have the methane.
It's almost as if the climate just changes sometimes.
Do you think it does?
Yeah, I think it might just sometimes change, like it did in this story in The Guardian. So we'll quickly squeeze this on in before we go. The Mail now with people complaining that they can't understand the Scottish accent.
I know.
Is this a review of tonight's headliners, Bruce?
Yes, no, it probably is. Clients have complained to my manager about my Scottish accent, says Bruce Devlin, headliners panellist. Some people say they're racist, but others insist I should talk slower. So a Scottish woman has faced criticism from her clients. Now, I'm not actually sure what she does. She's a professional who works for a large organisation. Could be B&M, who knows? And she's getting a load of hassle over her accent, and people, she's had to seek advice on how to deal with upsetting comments. People have suggested she might want to go for elocution lessons and all this kind of stuff. Speak English. I know.
Who's saying that? Most people are terrified to pick someone up on their accent. What kind of person?
Post-Brexit Britain.
Well, yeah,
we get it all the time, don't we, Bruce?
Maybe I'm not in the position to be able to...
It's true. Someone told me the other day I should go back up north. And I went, what do you mean? I don't really know anyone in Manchester. And went back up north, and I went, Scotland's a different country, you twit.
You can still get there. There isn't a wall anymore. Anyway, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Thursday's front pages. The Daily Mail leads with £75,000 deal sparks new battle with post office victims. The Guardian has hundreds of post office victims to get convictions overturned, and US warns of reprisals for Red Sea shipping attacks. The Telegraph leads with post office handed out bonuses for convictions. The Eye has pressure grows to punish post office scandal firm as victims will be cleared. The Express has justice, post office victims will be cleared. And finally, the Daily Star has arise, Mr. Bates. And those were your front pages, and that's all we have time for. Thank you to my guest, Cressida and Bruce. And that's it for tonight's show. Thanks. Headliners is back tomorrow. Stay tuned for breakfast if you're watching tomorrow. Bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office with the GB News forecast. Clear skies in the south overnight, cold and frosty in places, but actually a lot of cloud is covering the UK, and that cloud's being carried from the east and northeast by an area of high pressure sitting to the north. Now, the high pressure is generally keeping things settled at the moment, although we have seen some drizzly showers in places where the cloud has been low enough, especially for eastern and